Thank you all for attending today's artist talk with Lisa Naples. My name is Weywot. I'm the assistant curator here at the Michener Art Museum, and I was also the main curator for Lisa's show, Grounded in Gold. And so I have the great pleasure of introducing Lisa for her artist talk with you all today. And so Lisa Naples is a ceramicist currently based in Frenchtown, New Jersey. With a studio career of 47 years, Lisa has had and continues to have a vibrant career dedicated to creating, exhibiting, and teaching. Just this year, she received a New Jersey Council on the Arts Individual Artist Fellowship in conjunction with Mid-Atlantic Arts. As an artist and educator, she has traveled throughout the country to teach and exhibit at institutions such as Kent State University, Aramont School of Craft, and the Clay Studio in Philadelphia. But her travels nationally and even internationally should not obscure her dedication to her local community. As many of you know, around 10 years ago, Lisa created a classroom in her barn in Doylestown, where she invited the regional community to come in and learn. She has since moved her classroom space to Frenchtown, New Jersey, beginning in 2021, where she opened the Lisa Naples Clay Studio. And I should also mention that after this talk and after you visit the exhibition, many of Lisa's students have created works of art for purchase in the gift shop, so please peruse that at your leisure. And so we are delighted to have Lisa's most recent body of work exhibited and grounded in gold. And I am excited for this opportunity today for all of us to learn more about the sculptures from Lisa herself. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Lisa. Thank you.
In this talk, I will attempt to put a context around the work that's sitting in the gallery. It's deeply personal. As Abby said, I've been doing this for a long time, 47 years. I was a freshman in college when I took my first clay class, and it was like clay took me by the hand, and it never let me go, not once in all those years. There was no break in the action. So clay has been a constant companion to me and a mirror in my life. But just how to put words to the wordless movements through the years that lead you, the breadcrumb trail that leads you to where you stand, wherever that is. It's a shifting place. We stay grounded in gold, and we can go in there and see that work, but then there'll be something else coming, and there was something that came before it. So right up front, I would like to address the number one question I get asked, because I think that it is good context to put things in. Why do I use the rabbit as an occupier? I know a lot of you are going to ask me that question too, so we'll just get those out of the way. When I look around my environment, I don't see a shortage of rabbits, and yet rabbit is prey to so many creatures in the environment. So for me, the rabbit is a heroic figure. It's a heroic symbol, because I experience a lot of fear in my field of awareness every single day. So much fear. So I imagine that the rabbit has a lot of fear because it's getting picked, its brethren are getting picked off left, right, and center. But they don't just survive, they thrive because of the multitudes of them that we see out there. So they don't thrive through the individual, but through the collective. And I find that very inspiring. So as much as I confess that I have a lot of fear in my field of awareness, I'm a very sensitive person, so I sense it, but I also have so much courage available to me. Sometimes I think the courage is out of sync with my nervous system, and that's how I feel the fear, because I'm always just going for the next thing and the next thing. There's a South African author and psychologist named Susan David, who gave a TED Talk a number of years ago, and she had this one line in her talk, which I never forgot. She defines courage this way: courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is fear walking. So my undergraduate degree was in English literature, but then I followed my heart to studying ceramics. So function was really an important part of the first 30 years of making. this body of work that explored geometry in terms of its form, lots of it was all geometry. And the thing about it was that I'd get resolution on something and it would hand me the next idea. And I would develop that, and I would get resolution on that, and it would hand me the next idea. And that went on for 15 years. So, side by side with seeing the bottoms of things, you see there was decoration everywhere. And my friends teased me and said that I had horovacui, which is a Latin word that means a fear of empty spaces. And we all laughed and thought it was pretty funny, but I think it was true, actually, that I have a fear of empty spaces. Because since then, my life has given me opportunity after opportunity to explore the empty spaces. But when I got to the end of this body of work, how did I know I was at the end? The next idea didn't come. The only ideas that came were kind of recycled. I would be going back and doing what I'd done before, and I didn't want to do that. I couldn't do that somehow. So it was a crisis moment. It was like, what does that mean? Does that mean that I'm not a potter anymore? I really wondered if that's what it meant. So I was fortunate enough to receive a residency through the National Council, NCCA, and I went to the Australian National University in Canberra, Australia. I only had 2 months there, and I left a 5- and an 8-year-old to go. And I was a good mom. So to leave that 5- and that 8-year-old was not an easy thing. I promised myself 4 things if I was going to go. I mean, it was an honor to get that residency, but it was a big sacrifice too in my regular life. So I promised myself I wouldn't try to impress anyone. Because, you know, to impress somebody would be to do something I'd done before, and there wasn't time for that. But I was the first one getting that residency, so I wanted to make sure they knew they got the right person, and no, I had to put that aside. I wouldn't do anything I'd done before. I would stay open to everything, and other than those 3 rules, there wouldn't be any other rules. So I found myself wanting to draw, and as I said, I had an English degree, undergrad. I never learned how to draw, so it was, after making that beautiful work for 15 years, it really had to put my ego aside to say that I could be a beginner again. The storytelling that was bubbling up in me needed me to be able to illustrate. So I started. So I made a start. And the magpies in Australia were quite remarkable. They were very confident and handsome birds that would sort of march around the courtyard like they owned the place. And so it first started with magpies, and eventually the American equivalent for me was American crow. So this piece was called Conversation with Country. And when I got home, I continued to work in that style. Like, this was the beginning of something new. And it was very crude relative to the old work. But it developed, you know, just like anything. It's what I tell my students. When you're trying something new, you have to allow it to be really awkward at first. It just has to be given the space and time to be awkward at first. So the stories that started to appear around these portrait plates, this one's Rainer Maria Rilke, and other ones, the ones I did in Australia were from native Australian people. And then eventually they started to become my own words, you know, and my own thoughts. Like here you've got a predator and prey, but the words say be curious, you know, it's like conscious awareness, watching a movie, so that rabbit and that rabbit are the same rabbit. And so without the story that it's going to get nailed by that red-tailed hawk, it's just my legs work, I can run, everything's good, watch the movie, you know. So everything was told through pottery. All these stories got told through pottery once I could illustrate an image. This one was called, One Day I Got Tired of Running, so I stopped. And then the stories that I was telling through pottery yielded to stories that pottery couldn't tell. And then I had to learn how to work with 3-dimensional figures. So this was one of the first pieces that I made, self-portrait, and there's Crow giving me a message into my ear in an unopened envelope. So just run through some of those figurative pieces. And there's a Janus doll, you know, I didn't know that word when I made it, but a 2-headed thing. 1 head, 2 heads, 1 body, 2 heads. This one was called The Carrot is the Stick. all the things that I have to make room for to create. I need courage, the self-doubt's there, like there's always gonna be like the quote-unquote negative emotions. So I just have to make room for them and accommodate them and give them a chair, make them a cup of tea, and keep going, take another step. So I put this piece in because I think it might be the first piece I used gold on. So I think this is around 2018, and you can see that in the detail, at the interior, so this was a year when a huge amount of adversity came into my life, a huge cauldron of shifting identities and difficulties. And as painful as all of that was, I can look back and say that's when things got really interesting in the studio. Like this thing that's been my companion and mirror started showing me things that I hadn't released, I hadn't been able to bring up to the surface to even make up until then. So this piece is called Home, and it's me, holding myself with love, standing in a garden. But those flowers that are on the outside of the base are growing from the inside of me. They're internal. And they're all buds, flower buds inside, and the stem, which is the source of the life, is gold. So for me, gold represents the sacred. I know it has a huge life in art history, and I can't speak to that. I'm speaking just from my own experience, which is that it's the sacred. This image of an unopened envelope has been part of my vernacular for many, many years. And so here's a wall hair on the left two slides. It's a hair that's climbing the wall, and it's a vase. So it's a functional object. And over these next years, after working with strictly figurative sculpture, then it gets translated back to animal pottery, functional stuff again. But there's the unopened envelope, and it has gold on it. And here's a bell. The one on the right is a bell, an animal bell, and the clapper is a pack of unopened envelopes with gold. This is chronologically when Gestation 1 and Gestation 2 were made, which is roughly around 2018. I still have Gestation 1, but the museum now owns Gestation 2. I made them during that really tumultuous year of transformation, and I didn't have a frame of reference for them. So I didn't know where they wanted to go. I made them and I just looked at them and said, whose babies are you? I don't recognize you. I don't know what you need from me, so let's let you gestate. So I just put them aside, And it was also, at the moment that I realized that these massive changes were coming into my life, it was then that I asked for a show at the Clay Studio in Philadelphia. I had been a resident artist there many years earlier, maybe 25 years earlier, and I didn't know the staff who were running the place then, but I was part of that family. So I reached out and I said, this is what's going on in my life. I need a show. I have never needed a show, but I need one now because there's so much chaos and dreaming and I need a place to put it. I need something on the horizon, way out. Can we do something in 2 years? And they said, yes, we'll support you. I was quite lost. There was a lot going on. In order to come up with a title for that show, oh my God, all the side stories. Focus. I literally put into a search engine, when you don't have a compass or a map, how do you find your way? And the first answer that came up over and over again was using the sun to find north. So that became the title of the show. And it turns out the show was about wayfinding. This whole wall was, oh, and by the way, the show was scheduled for November of 2020. And we all know what happened in 2020. So like the most beautiful thing was that we could have small groups. So I got to talk to people in groups of 6, 3 times every Saturday, like for 3 half-hour periods every Saturday through a 6-week run of the show. And if I had to choose between that and having a grand opening, I would choose that every time because that was like such meaningful conversations. So there was a central image, and then there's 2 paths. And basically, I thought when I started to make this work, I thought it was like virtue and vice, kind of. And now I would say it's more like surrender and coping strategies. It's not there's no right or wrong or good or bad in it at all. Because on some days, the best thing I can do is sit around and eat ice cream, and that's okay. Other days, I find the courage to go to the gym or whatever the other more healthy thing is. But I am all that. I'm all those things. So basically, then the text that was being wrapped around was my own telling of this urban legend about this red-tailed hawk and her journey. And that's the coping strategy, you know, like she's laying on her back exhausted. When she finally gets some energy, this one's gonna fly up to the top of the tallest peak of the highest mountain, and that one's gonna get on a plane. It's just like, I'm tired, I need a break. And this one, you know, her feathers are molting, but she's gonna allow that, she's gonna be with that. And this one's gonna go out and buy a fur coat at the Moore store. So that wall was about wayfinding, and then the other main theme that I was exploring was impermanence. And so I did a series of rabbits running. This first one is coming into form from the celestial realm, and it's about to jump into a vessel. And you see that little spot of gold where it's gonna make contact. There's the sacred again. And here, this one is death. This one's leaving the vessel and going back into the celestial realm. And there you see a series of them. And I hope this works. Yes. My nephew put it together like this so you can see. Locomotion. Okay, so now we're back to these guys. And my teacher, I had a lot of great teachers, but Bill Daly was my most important teacher. And he was 97 or 96 years old after my show ended, and he couldn't get to my show because he was a very old man, and it was COVID time. So he asked me to bring some pieces to him because he wanted to buy a piece. I remember saying I called his adult children and I said, you guys don't need another pot in your house. I'm sure you don't need another pot in your house because your houses are all full of his collections from over the years. And they said, oh, come on, it's so we're all so happy when there's a new pot in the house. Bring it over. I figure I'm going to stay for 10 minutes. And anyway, I joined them for lunch, and it was one of the most amazing days just to be with that family. But Bill, I brought him like 6 pieces, and Bill looked at gestation 2, and he pointed at it. And he said, this, pure. This, love. And so what more could you ask for from your teacher to give you such a big green light, you know, that you'd come to a place like that? So I knew that I was going to develop that work at some point, but after the Clay Studio show, I decided to move my life to Frenchtown. And, you know, selling a house, buying a house, renovating a house, finding a studio, renovating a studio, all of that stuff, and establishing the business and the community takes a couple of years. But it was at that point, Bill died, and he offered this piece, his family offered this piece to the Michener. So they contacted me about the piece and about some details about the piece, and I said, you know, I'd really like to bring that forth. Now, I'm ready to explore that subject matter. So we set up this show. Now, gestation 1 had that single chimney, and I didn't like the way that it kind of killed that beautiful cleavage. So I put 2 chimneys on gestation 2, and as soon as that happened, you could see that there were 2 figures there. And so that's what starts to get explored, is that it's one vessel, but there's 2 figures. And this is an exploration of my internal world. All of this is an exploration of what I experience as a single being, but there's often dialogue in my head, and there's often a conflict. Someone's at odds with somebody else. Like, how could there be 2 or 3 or 4 if there's just one? So it's not even, I don't even have something more specific than that to say, and I suspect that 10 years from now, I'll be able to articulate it much more clearly. Still too close. But tenderness is one of the ways that I relate to myself. So I knew I wanted to make tenderness, so I made the study, which is on the left, and then I made the large piece on the right. And the gold just came back. The gold was there, because as soon as I created that kind of skirt, appearance of a skirt or clothing, I could do like this inside-outside thing, you know? So the gold was on the inside, and the gold is inside the ears and coming out as flower buds on the left. and as birds on the right. And then this piece, almost to make it into this show, is so filled with imperfections that I thought, it doesn't belong in the show. And silly me, I just need to see things. I need some distance sometimes to see the value of things. The difference in size between this one and the last one is considerable. So in order for me to bring forth this work, I knew intuitively that I had to scale up. I had to go right to the edge of my own ability, my own skill level. Somehow that would help me. It would catalyze. Being on the edge of that would help me understand something. So this is huge. It's like the slab that starts this piece is about 55 inches across and maybe 24 or more inches this way and a quarter of an inch thick. So from a construction point of view, that's crazy. But I got it off, but then it started to fall in on itself. It started to collapse. And I could have repaired those areas so you wouldn't even know that happened. But what happened with this was, I saw it starting to collapse, and I thought, well, when I put it into the glaze firing, it might really collapse because of the technical aspect of ceramics. I knew that might happen, so I thought, I'm not going to spend all the time to make heads for this one, if it's going to collapse. How else can I resolve it? How else can it be resolved if I don't go to my go-to representational storytelling? So you see, gestation 1 and 2 are non-representational. And some of these in the gallery are representational, meaning recognizable animal head. But these are non-representational. And that's, you can see, like for 30 years I made functional pottery, function, like comfort. It had a reason for being, somebody could use it, So to step away from that into the figurative realm was a leap of faith for me and a challenge. But to step away from even representation, it just marks a moment in my career, it marks a moment in my internal life that I was willing to do that it was willing to do that. It's like a poem instead of a novel, It's like it gets down to the essence of something. So the top is, they fit together. They are unified, even though they seem like two separate beings. So the next slide is after I made that piece, I thought, well, I don't know where I'm going next. So I don't want to make another giant slab because I don't know what I'm making. So I better make some studies. So it was at this point that I made the rest of the studies and I played around with how much gold to put, how much gold was required. And it wasn't a cost thing. It was just a curiosity, what's going to really hit the mark. And I decided that the maximum amount of gold was required. But I made these pieces, and then my friend Christy, who I pointed out early in the lecture, Christy's like my muse. I don't know if that's the right word, but like a person who is a great mirror. She's a great reflection for me. So she came to visit with dear friends. And we were sitting over at the Early Bird Cafe across from the studio. I'll never forget this day. And I hope you don't mind me sharing that you're a Buddhist. So she's a Buddhist, and I'm a deeply spiritual person, but not a Buddhist. And I share that piece of it because I think there's some language that's shared and some concepts, and we're going back and forth. And I said, she's asked me about this one, and I say, well, the white rabbit is in presence, is present, and the red rabbit is caught in an emotional reactive pattern. So one is present, and one has lost the awareness of presence. And she was arguing they're both present. And I said, no, this one's lost the awareness of presence. And we went back and forth, and finally I said, it doesn't matter because they're all grounded in gold. And then I went, oh, that's the title of the show. And that was the answer to my question. I mean, that's kind of like the answer to all of this. It's like, when I'm down some, forgive the pun, rabbit hole of emotion, when I'm really like feeling lost because I'm so dysregulated with whatever, sadness or anger or whatever, Am I okay? Is that less valuable in the world? Is that less honorable? Is it less than when I'm present, like I am right now with all of you, not missing this? I'm not missing this. Won't let nerves let me miss this, no way. I'd rather just go silent because I can't remember what I was supposed to say. And so grounded in gold means no, not better, not worse, all good, everything's good. All of it's actually required. If I didn't have the moments of sadness and the moments of anger, how could I possibly feel offness? How could I possibly know how to move back towards alignment with my true being? So, you see, I'm trying to put words to it the best I can, and you get it, you won't get it. But this is what this work is about for me. It's me trying to just find my way in the world. And so I made this piece actually with the intention of making the one that has chimneys, but it was so complete, just like that. It was so beautiful and complete that I left it alone. And I still wanted to make the ones with chimneys, but I wanted to see what this would look like. It was also right around there that Christy said to me, so what's going on here? What's the color thing? And I said, well, it's black and white. And she said, that's not white. And I said, yeah, that's white. That's my white. I've been using that white for all these years. And she looked me in the eye and she goes, it isn't white. And I said, oh, right, it's not. So then I started to play around with whites that could be more white. And so then I did make gestation 1 and gestation 2. So the straight up and down columns, you see, integration 1 and 2. I think I just said gestation. But when you look at gestation, it's a complete tube, and this it's split in half. So it's like for me, the two parts are coming together. For me, the two parts are approaching integration. For other people, they're coming apart, and that's perfectly valid. I am 100% comfortable with anybody's interpretation because that's what they need to see. But the difference between these two, I really feel them as male and female, these polarities of gender. And this was the last large piece that I made. And again, it's based on that seeing red and choosing not to involve, the little study, but it's a three-way. So one is in presence, and the other two are like the emotional bits of us that are coming towards the one that's in presence, trying to pull it away from presence. And in my experience, thoughts have babies. So if my mind is making an argument for something, it has all these supporting thoughts. None of it's true, none of it's accurate, none of it's could withstand inquiry, but there they are. So there's the babies, the thoughts having babies, and they're not fully formed, they're just like fragments of thoughts. So I'm showing you this slide this way so that you can get a really clear sense of what that gold form is. When I made the last piece, which was called Choosing Presence, I knew it was the last piece for the show. Making these giant objects was exhilarating and wonderful, and when I was done, I was done. You couldn't have paid me to make another one. It was just like clear, it was done. So, but every time as I went along, I made this gold, what turned into gold, inset differently until I refined it to a point where I made it as a single unit, and then I dropped it in, custom made for that piece. But if you can imagine a cooked shrimp, everybody in this room knows what a cooked shrimp curves like, and then you devein that shrimp and you splay it. Now you have basically that object. And I held it in my hands and I went, who are you? You know, like, that's cool. That has a lot of potential. So I'm gonna bookmark that and come back to it later. So in January and February of this year, I came back to it to see if there was anything more that wanted to come through for this show. And so it starts there, and where it led was to the wall pieces. But I brought these pieces to show you because when I started there, you know, I am a devout follower of process. So the first place that wanted to go naturally in form, in the making, without my head getting involved, the first place it wanted to go was to become a heart. And I'm not really a kitschy person, even though I do like the image of rabbit. It's not really part of my vernacular, but I am a devout practitioner of process, so I said, okay, okie dokie, heart. Let's not miss anything. Let's go for like Valentine heart. Let's change the proportion so it really looks like a Valentine heart. So I saw this, and then the next place to go was to make it a little bit larger. So I started to build it this way. So I made the initial thing, which you can see, right? There's the initial shape. And then I put this slab on it, but this slab is soft. So I can't put this slab on it and lay it down because I'll dent this side. So I laid it down on its flat side and went and did something else. And when I came back to it, I saw it with fresh eyes and I said, oh, it's done. It doesn't need that other side. It doesn't have to be that bang you over the head heart. It's done. But then I picked it up and I thought, oh my God, now there's an inside. You know? So then I put like a frame around it, and that's just where it went. These white lines came in, and of course there's gold inside. So then the next place it went was kind of to this echoey, people see this as vaginal, which is fine, but I don't know that I was thinking that way. It's just more like an echo, you know? It's just the natural progression relative to my intuitive knowing in the studio. The next place it went was to an ear. And then it moved to a labyrinth. And labyrinths look like a game, so I made a bee to play with, to turn this into a toy. And then Christy came back to visit again. And we're talking about bees, and she said, well, what if it's not one thing? What if one thing is a unit? And then again, my head's gonna explode, right? Because as soon as we do this, as soon as we put two together, and it could have been 3 or 4 or 6 or 8, you know, it could be anything. But as soon as there was more than one, then I saw that in my own mind's eye. And so I made 2 of them, but they're saying the same thing as integration 1 and 2. They're saying the same thing. It's about integration. So then I was like, yeah, I'm really done. The show is really done. You know, if I was in any doubt, now I know for sure that it's complete, because it's just doing this circular thing and coming around. And I didn't even look at those last several pages of notes. So that's the last slide, and I am so grateful for your attention and for the fact that you came out today. I really, truly am. It is such an honor to be able to speak to you about these really private things in this public venue, and I am so happy to take questions. But that's it.
Does anyone have any questions for Lisa?
You may have said this already, but I'm curious what the gold represents to you.
Yeah, it just it represents the animating force, the sacred. It's really as simple as that. So that's why it's like the thing that's trying to come through. On the unopened envelope, you know, that flap that showed itself as gold, there was a poem of Rilke's that I read as a child, and I think it changed a lot in my mind over the years, but it spoke about how a parent passes on things that they haven't examined themselves. They pass them on as if in an unopened envelope to their children. And it was such a poetic image and so innocent, you know? And I thought, I wonder what my unopened envelopes are. And there's gold in them there.
Is there a value association as far as materials?
Well, it is. It's 23 karat gold, so there's thousands of dollars worth of gold in there.
Besides it costing, is there a value you're associating when you integrate it into your work?
Oh, okay. No. No, it's just the right man for the job.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Janice.
In one of your pieces in the exhibit, you talk about dialectic.
Yeah.
Two opposing aspects coming together. to join into one. Can you expand that out a bit more?
How much time do you have? Mom's bouncing around. It's so often the case. You know, I find it really beautiful and confounding to be a human being. Because so often something I think is true, upon further investigation, isn't, or is only partially true. And so that opens up the possibility that it's opposite as truth too. And so, you know, how do we navigate this life? I'm going to assume that the floor is going to hold me up, and I'm going to walk. I'm going to make assumptions all day long. I'm going to assume you're coming. Going to ask me a good question. You know, like we make assumptions all day long. So, holding both opposites, holding the possibility of a I don't want to get in over my head, but it's like we have dualistic minds. We make things right and wrong, black and white, good and bad. But what if none of that's true? What if there's just an isness? I don't know what else to say about that, but you could ask another question if you have one, or anybody else could.
Hi, I'm Laurie from Doylestown. Wonderful work. You had mentioned that when you are in the process of creating your art, that you're very much in the present. Do you find that in the past that you found yourself stuck in the past, or worrying about the future? Or how do you approach your work today?
Yeah, never in my studio. That was never the case in my studio, but it's often the case in my regular life. The rest, anything other than the studio, or you know, talking to a dear friend, or being really present right now. I'm not thinking about the future and the past, but I think it's the nature of the mind. So that's the great gift of the studio practice, is that you go into a flow state. I get really still. I don't know. I call it the sacred, this question about the gold, it's sacred to me because I don't know where all this comes from, it's coming through me. I have something to do with it. It's responding to my life's experience, but not exactly coming from me. So that stillness is a requirement for me to not have an agenda about where it goes. That's why I had to stop making that work that had such a great run for 15 years. And anybody could have called me on the phone and said, wedding next weekend, $200 budget, send me something. And it would have been a crowd pleaser. But when it was done. And I will not rest on my laurels ever, because I'm too grateful and too much, I have too much respect for that source, the source of where it comes from. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Kelsey from Doylestown. I want to go back to the gold. It's beautiful. And of course, as a viewer, that's where my eye goes first. Is that intentional, where you place it? Is it aesthetic? Is it intentional? Are we supposed to focus there?
Let me ask the room, because I really don't know the answer to this. If the answer to the following question is yes, I want you to put up your hand. When you walk into the show and you look around, is the gold the thing that you look at first? Just raise your hand if it is. There's just a couple people. So, I was curious. It wasn't to answer your question, no. There's no strategy like that for me. This work comes from such an intuitive place. It's not really and I really don't try to create an agenda for how somebody's going to look at it. Because I really do think that the way you look at it is the way you need to see it. The work has a life of its own after it leaves me. I like to say that This is the smoke that's left after the fire. This is just an object. But the thing that got it made, that happened while it was being made, that's the fire. And so that's the really precious thing that nobody can buy or sell or take from you. And I have so much reverence for that, yeah, it just comes out the way it comes out, I guess. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
You started with functional, now you've done non-functional. Do you have a comfort zone? And I don't mean where you feel comfortable, like you can't make a mistake, but that makes you happy. That's what
My comfort zone is the unknown. Truly, my comfort zone is what's left.
the challenge of what's next.
Yes. So I can't go back and make what I've made before, because it's kind of like turning myself into a machine. And I can't compete with machines, because machines would win. A, and B, that's kind of silly, that's not even the first reason, it's just, there's a life force. Creativity is a life force. I love it when students come to the studio for the first time and they say, well, I want to take a class, but I don't have any creativity. It's my favorite, because I know that's not true. It's not possible. It's like saying I don't know how to breathe. They just don't know it yet. So I get to watch them, and we all get to watch them discover that they do have creativity, that they have as much access to it as anybody. They just haven't given themselves time with it, you know? So, so my comfort zone is exploration. I'm an explorer. So for the Phillips Mill show, I'm really still trying to get there. I'm trying to get to the piece of work that, or the series that's going to give me the piece of work that I'm going to apply to that show with this year. It's in my head. It was a study. I could have brought those. They were these really tall tests. They were test tiles, but they were just sculptures. It turned out to be sculptures. And they were test tiles for the glaze that was on that last big piece. I really worked hard to get a mossy glaze that would be kind of ugly in its beauty. And so I needed to see how it would cascade, how much it would run. So I made these three things. Why did I make those forms? They came into my head. It's like, oh, I have these clouds hanging in my home from the Clay Studio show. I have one set of those clouds and they're hanging in my home, and I saw one of those clouds turned up on its side on like a pyramid type of. So I made it. I didn't question it. I don't need to know why. It's just going to be a test tile anyway. So I made three of these things, and they're so gorgeous, and they look like trees to me. And I'm really excited about exploring. But you see, a breadcrumb trail got dropped in my lap there. Ideas get dropped into our heads all day long. But do we listen to them? I mean, I'm learning better to listen to them outside of the studio. But anything to do with creativity, I listen. I'm Fraser Crane, I'm listening. You know, like, I get out of the shower, or you're in the shower, like the shower is a place where there's a lot of creativity coming. I don't know if you have that experience, but I find the shower to be a very fertile place. Driving in the car is also one of those places where I don't have a conflict. There's no conflict. If I'm in the house, I think I'm supposed to be in the studio. If I'm in the studio, I think I'm supposed to be in the house. I should be, that garden, those weeds are screaming at me. There's always a conflict. But if I'm in the shower, I'm just supposed to be getting clean. And if I'm in the car, you know? So there's like a quiet that comes to my mind. And it's in that stillness that creativity has a little space to come through, you know? It just wants to come through. It's coming through to all of us all the time. But we have to be able to hear it. And we can't hear it if we're so busy figuring out our future and our past. All that stuff. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Thank you.
Can you talk further about your spirituality and the role it plays in your art?
I guess they go hand in hand, because my studio life is a manifestation of the spirit realm. Nobody ever asked me this question, so I want to be really thoughtful in my reply. I feel like the luckiest person in the world in some ways, because I get to have a studio life. And it's been abiding for 47 years. I'm so grateful. And it's not, like, don't get the idea that I'm not in my studio every day, all day long, because David can tell you, these guys can tell you, I'm not. I'm like doing the admin, running the business, doing a million other things. But when I do carve out the time, like carving out the time to make this show was a sacrifice of finances. Like I had to put aside teaching, I had to put aside something to make the space to make the show, because if you saw me in my studio, what you would see is a woman sitting in a chair staring, or occasionally a woman standing staring. And just like, what's going on there, you know? Sometimes I'm visualizing something, and other times I'm just, I don't know what, I'm waiting. I'm not even waiting, it's more like I'm opening, ready to receive. And insights just drop in. And anything that I'm saying right now is so feeble relative to the experience of it. It's just the words, you know, that I can point at what goes on there. So I don't know how anybody who creates truly from their guts could ever think there wasn't something beyond us, you know? Because of the experience of creation, I do feel like I'm in a collaboration, and it's so much fun. It's like, oh my God, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I got it. I'm gonna try that. You know, like, where does it come from? I don't know. You know, I can't really take credit for it, but that's what that's what the process of being an artist for this long has shown me, is that that's what's required to do something authentic that comes from your being, is to get still and to collaborate with that force. Thank you for that question. Anybody else?
David here. Did you say that this piece, this wall piece, was the final piece for the show that you did?
Yeah.
Did you feel that? Like, because to me, I feel it. But like, how did you know? Was it a question of, that's all the time that you had, or did you feel like, no, this was the end of this journey for the show?
Well, because it had circled around. Like, I thought choosing presents, the big one with the three heads and all the baby heads, I thought that was the end of the show. But I wasn't sure. And you know, when you're getting ready for a show, it's really hard for me to conceptualize how much room there is in there and what, you know, do I have enough? I never think I have enough. Come to a dinner party at my house, goes abundanza. God forbid somebody should stop by. But I thought I was done after choosing presents because of that feeling inside of me that I didn't want to roll another big giant ass slab. It wasn't that I didn't want to, like, out of a sense of tiredness. It was like, it's complete. It felt complete. But curiosity got the better of me with this, you know, because that other idea had come. So I said, okay, I'm going to explore that. And so I did, and that's what came to, you know, turned into all of these, and then finally turned into those. So, and then the content, the meaning of those for me was a reflection of some of the other pieces in the show, which told me I don't need to say it 7 different ways. I don't need to keep saying it. I've said it, it's done. There's nothing else to say. For this, you know, you set parameters for yourself. Like that body of work that took 15 years with all the exploration of geometry and form, and then pattern, all that mark making. I set parameters. Well, maybe not consciously, but I had that function was a parameter, you know? And so I think that it took 15 years for me to work through all the various permutations within the confines that I set. I'm not saying there weren't more, I just saying I didn't think of any more. So then it was like, oh, am I gonna repeat myself just because I can sell this work? No, it was done. And so then it was an invitation, you know, you could say it was an invitation from spirit or the universe. Let's see what else. Over here, you know, come over this way. Let's try this. Lisa's terrified. I don't know if I can do that, you know, but I keep walking. So it's more like that for me. I thought it was done. I tried something else. It showed me, yeah, it's done. Because it's pointing at the same thing. So even though this looks really different than integration 1, 2, and dialectic, it's saying the same thing. Make sense?
Yeah, I even feel that, like, after seeing your whole process, like, I even see how it relates to the conversation between 2 continents. You know?
100%.
Yeah.
in so many ways, and this isn't what you mean, but I just want to say that when I was in Australia and I started wanting to draw those crows, I started downloading images of American crow. And on the first piece of paper that came out of the printer, it said, crow turned himself into a pine beetle, ... And remember, crow came to me through the magpie. First it was the magpie. But after 2 weeks of drawing magpies, I thought, they're lovely, but they have nothing to do with home. So what's the American equivalent? Crow. So crow turned himself into a pine beetle. Who's talking to me? Where'd that come from? It's like I was on a scavenger hunt. And I thought, all right, I'll play. So I put it in quotes into a Google search. Crow turned himself into a pine beetle, ... And down comes all this lore. The 2 continents. Which 2 continents? North America and Australia. All these native peoples talking about so magpies, crows, blue jays, and ravens are corvids. They're cousins. What does crow represent? Reinvention. What am I doing in Australia? Reinventing myself. Not having fear in the void. Well, I had a lot of fear in the void. I was in the void. I was in Australia where they speak English, but I couldn't understand them. And it was the dead of summer and it was the dead of winter. And they're driving in cars, but they're on the other side of the car, on the other side of the road. And it was just like too much for my analytical brain. It just shut me down so that I had to live on that creative side, which is brutal. Without your analytical brain to sort of buffer you, it was all I could do to get from my flat through the kiln room to my studio without crying. Most days it was just like so turned upside down. I'm a mother of 2 small children, and where are they? You know, so it was kind of a perfect place to do a residency because it forced openness. It forced surrender. Or it didn't force it, but it really gave me a great opportunity for surrender. And I know that's not how you meant between the continents, but it's all a microcosm of everything else, you know? This is a matrix. I'm no different than any of you. You're just like me. And coming here today and feeling your presence, I'm gonna carry this with me for a long time. It's really beautiful. It matters where we go, who we spend time with.
I don't know what I meant by it, to be honest with you, but it just feels very full. It feels like looking at this feels like there's so much in this piece.
Well, and we can, as more insights around it bubble up, we can have more conversation. Studio. Thank you, David.
I really love that you described in the show what happened when the piece that you had intended to put rabbit heads on wouldn't let you do that. And so what you had intended to be a representational piece became an abstract piece. And I find those moments in the studio when something fails, those are the absolute most important times and events. And so I just wondered if you had further thoughts about what happened to that piece and then what happened to you because of what happened to that piece.
Yes, thank you. You guys, this is Hank Bayless. He's a phenomenal potter. He just happened to be in the area. Here in Connecticut. You guys are in Connecticut, right? So this is just one of those beautiful synchronicities in life that they were here. Like I said, that piece almost didn't make it in because I didn't think it was good enough to be part of the show. It was like, oh, that's the one that had all those failures. And I was experimenting with the gold. I was experimenting with different kinds of gold. And so it's kind of scratchy. The gold area isn't so like pristine. And then there's that. And there's a crack up at the top. When you've been a potter for so many years, a crack is not, oh, that's beautiful. No, it's a second, So that piece taught me it's not some like concept to embrace imperfection. It wasn't on that level. It was like, you say you like process. You say that you're a devotee of process. Well, put your money where your mouth is, honey. That's what happened in this piece. And it didn't collapse, so it is standing, and it could be in that show. And Bill Daly, when he did pass away, his some of his work ended up here too, from his collection. And there's a piece in the area where you're walking through and you see all the fine art craft. There's a tall piece of his, and it's bloating, which is a technical term. The clay is actually starting to boil. You can see it has sort of like blisters on it. Well, that would be a second if you were a potter, or it might even just hit the trash bin. But I love that that's there. I love that that piece, and maybe Bill wouldn't have allowed it to go to a museum. I don't know. I really don't know. He might have been totally thrilled to have it go to a museum. But it's like another level of evolution. There's a fine line between saying something's okay when it's not, in some BS way, and saying it's okay because it truly is. You just had to get over your perfectionism. You know? I love that piece now. And I would have, you know, even Gestation 2 that the museum has now, it was on my studio floor in Doylestown for a while. I didn't appreciate it. I didn't really quite get it. And then it took me a while. So these pieces that come out of me that are beyond me, I run the risk of dismissing them. And when you talk about failures, you know, there's a Olympic, I think she was a volleyball player, and I don't know her name, but she defined the word fail, F-A-I-L, as first attempt in learning. And I love that, you know. I like to say to my students, if you haven't failed recently, you're not trying hard enough. You're really not. Because if we're all so careful all the time and we expect things to be perfect, then we're not going to be able to grow, really. It's such a rich conversation. I really have enjoyed it so much. And I'll say, like I said, for anybody who didn't get to ask a question, if you have any questions, I'll stay. Or we can go to the gallery, you know. So, thank you.